Good morning, everyone, and welcome to GEO Week 2020. Today we have the live panel sessions. We are going to be joined by, well, we already have Australia, Switzerland and Ukraine, and hopefully Vietnam will be joining us shortly. This session is called a Conversation with GEO Principals, Deriving Value from GEO. And we're going to discover the role of Earth observations by some of the 100 plus countries in GEO. And we're going to learn about their investments and their programs that are planned or that are currently in progress, and generally have a nice chat with them. So we're going to start today with, we're going to go alphabetically for no other reason than it's simple. So Australia, we are going to go to you. So g'day, Trevor. So I should just introduce Trevor. Trevor Dew is the acting branch head for National Earth and Marine Observations and the GEO Principal for Australia. Trevor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Steve. Can we put the slides up, Rick? And just while you're doing that, I'll start with a bit of a preamble, which is to say hello, everyone. I won't try and pick what time zone everyone's in. But thank you to Stephen for the chance to come and hear from a number of countries from around the world, and also talk about how Australia is leveraging GEO and leveraging Earth observation to really help us, drive better environmental decision making, more sustainable economic growth across Australia. And to do that, I want to start just with one example, just to give a flavour of the sort of things that we are doing in Australia with Earth observation. If we can go to the next slide, please. One of the investments the Australian government has made is in Digital Earth Australia, a massive program to try and unlock satellite data in particular for better decision making. And one of the kind of flagship products that we've produced with that is Digital Earth Australia, or DEA, water bodies, which has actually mapped 300,000 water bodies right across our vast continent, and more importantly, gives us an estimate about every 2 weeks as to how full those water bodies are. Now, that is a previously unimaginable insight into the value and state of water across this vast dry continent. And importantly, if we can go to the next slide, we're actually using that and embedding it increasingly in our water management processes. So the Murray-Darling Basin is a vast region of Australia down in southeastern Australia, and it's home to huge agricultural effort. And in fact, it's responsible for about 40% of our agricultural produce in Australia. But it's equally home to over 30,000 wetlands, 16 of which are internationally significant. And so you can see immediately, in a country that suffers drought so frequently, there is a contested nature for water between really important agricultural productivity as well as protecting these really, really valuable ecosystems. So if we can go to the next slide, please. One of the key challenges we have is that we actually have tools in place through the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, as well as through our Water Act, that actually say there are times when water in this system needs to be protected such that it gets to key ecosystems, key wetlands, key parts of the environment. And we had an example of that earlier this year, back in January and February, where water came into the system that needed to be protected. And so we worked with the regulator in New South Wales to help them tackle the problem of how do you monitor the over 2,000 dams that are on screen at the moment to make sure that water is getting where it is meant to go and that no one is taking water inappropriately. Now, the reality is with 2,000 dams, you can't systematically assess where there might have been water theft without tools like DEA water bodies. And if we go to the next slide, please. Hopefully the animation will play. It should just start automatically. This doesn't bode very well. Right, I had a fear this might happen. Well, we'll just talk across the top of it while we see if we can start it. Basically, what you can see here is the before image using imagery from the European Commission Sentinel Copernicus satellites. That's all right, no need to worry about it. We'll just go to the next slide in a second. What I'll say, though, is that we've been able to use DEA water bodies to systematically identify all of those water bodies that we are confident did not fill up with water during this time. And what that allows the regulator to do is very quickly say, of the 2,000 dams, farm storages that are in the region, 1,800 of those we know, or we're very, very confident, didn't fill up with water. And it allows them to focus a much more systematic approach to compliance in the region by just focusing on the 200 water bodies that we're not confident didn't fill up with, and to ask the question whether or not they did fill up and whether they did take water illegally. And if we can go to the next slide, please. It's important to recognise, though, that is only one part of the Australian government that is actually making better decisions with Earth observation data. Earth observation data is playing a role in a huge array of decision making, whether that be in how we do our environmental economic accounting, how we do things like our agricultural census, and we actually have a diverse number of players across Australia. What you see on screen here is just a very, very small snapshot of players from across research, across academia, across government, who are all contributing. But one of the areas I really want to focus on as I close out this presentation is to talk about what an important role industry has in Australia. If we go to the next slide, please. You know, there are many ways that we in GEO tend to think about industry being able to contribute to better value within our countries. Everything from commercial cloud operators who are increasingly unlocking the satellite data that's being produced by satellite operators globally, public-private partnerships. So, for example, right now, Geoscience Australia, EY, the Country Fire Authority and Microsoft are collaborating on the Next Wave Data Challenge that's going to kick off in November, that's looking to get new innovations in how data is used. But critically in Australia, if we go to the next slide, please, one of the things we're really looking at is, well, how is it we can help small, medium enterprises be the bridge from Earth observation data right down to better decision making and better economic growth across our country. So Digital Earth Australia has done an industry strategy. We've looked at understanding where there are specific priorities and opportunities in sectors like agriculture. And we've also run a small grants program called DEA Labs that was there to really help companies de-risk and get new ideas out to market. And if we can go to my last slide, please. One of the outcomes of that is a small company called SIBO Labs. And what SIBO Labs are doing today is really quite extraordinary. They are taking satellite data, so from the Copernicus program, they are producing new products from that, and they're creating that, getting that from us, from Digital Earth Australia. They're combining it with their own on-ground ground truth data and their own machine learning smarts to produce new products that are telling vast agricultural grazing properties in Northern Australia how much food they have available in every one of their paddocks. And they're giving them an update on that every single week. And this is just, again, one single example of one company. But increasingly, the view we see in Australia is that the value from GEO is unlocking these data sets, unlocking these capabilities, and unlocking new ways that Australia can take Earth observation data and turn that into better decisions, either better decisions on how we manage our water in the Murray-Darling Basin or better decisions on how we manage our massive grazing properties. And it is a huge area, and it's something Australia is very proud to be part of and very grateful for the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you, Stephen.
Fantastic. So I'm just going to take a couple of questions just now for individual speakers before we go. I have one myself for you, Trevor. How much was given to DE Australia for from a policy perspective to fund it, over what period, and how difficult was it to get it, you know, based on this Earth observations work?
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. So the program itself, when it was announced, was $36 million over 4 years. But I think that the key part of Digital Earth Australia is it is an ongoing investment from the Australian government. So we have roughly $13 million a year being invested into Digital Earth Australia to make sure that, and particularly one of the reasons that that ongoing nature is important is because it gives companies, it gives industry, and it gives other government policymakers certainty that that program will be there to support their decision making. They know that the Australian government is committed to making sure that Earth observation data is available to them to make better decisions. In terms of how hard it was to make a case, I mean, the real key part of it was us proving the value, was us working across, and in particular working across government agencies to make sure that we could demonstrate to them the value that Earth observation data could play to their specific policy problems. And that's taken a collective effort of not just Geoscience Australia, but many people across all levels of government. I would say about 3 to 4 years worth of really concentrated building of a coalition of the willing, if you would like. But that coalition has transformed now our ability in Australia to unlock satellite data. and increasingly it is transforming our ability to make better decisions and better manage our environment.
Thank you. There's a question in for you, Trevor, from Finland. And the question is, what exposure has Australia gained in the last year? It talks about internet attention. So I'm guessing that's as a result of, the Canberra meeting and maybe also some of this work on DE Australia. Are you able to give us some ideas about that?
So I'm not sure this will answer the question exactly, but there's a couple of things I'd say about that. I mean, I think there's two things. What we've seen in Australia, particularly off the back of the Canberra Declaration and off the GEO Week 2019, was increasing focus, I think, across the GEO community, particularly on how we work with industry. And I'm really, really proud and been really impressed with what South Africa's managed to do this year with the industry track for part of GEO Week 2020. And we think that's a really good step forward for GEO. But the other thing that I think has been important that's come out of GEO Week 2019 has been the partnership and the growing connectivity for the Pacific. Particularly, within GEO, we now have established a Pacific Islands Advisory Group that is really helping GEO and the work program from GEO have a way to listen and to hear from Pacific Island nations how they want GEO to frame our work. And I think that's been a really important thing that's come from the last year. The Pacific stream at GEO Week 2019 that led to a Talanoa statement that was a really clear and unambiguous articulation of the principles by which Pacific Island countries and territories want GEO to engage with them, and the ability to then for the GEO community to listen to that and react has been really important. I think the very last thing I'd say is in terms of Digital Earth Australia, the thing we are really encouraged to see is that increasingly the technology at the heart of that's being produced by many, many players, Geoscience Australia, CSIRO, AMA, CIOS, NASA, has then had implementations in Switzerland, which I've got no doubt we'll hear about later, some fantastic work coming out with DataCube, Digital Earth Africa, and more importantly, a growing community that sees this as one way, and there are many ways, but one key way that will help countries take advantage of this increasing wealth of Earth observation data that GEO is playing such an important role to unlock.
Great, thank you very much. So we now have our colleague from Vietnam on with us as well, so good evening to you. The next speaker, we're going alphabetically, so the next speaker will be Karine Sigvart, who's the Vice Director from the Federal Office of the Environment, FOEN. And without much ado, Karine, I will hand over to you.
Thank you so much, and good morning or good afternoon or good evening, everybody here in the world. Speak to you and insights of the Swiss experience with Earth observations, and also Swiss experience or the benefit that we have for being a member of the great GEO community. So Trevor mentioned it. I think it's really important to keep in mind that data and information, if it is from Earth observation or in situ data, are really important for governments and decision makers to make their decision properly and in good quality, and for be sustainable for the future and the future generations. So I want to talk of the first little insight of Swiss experience. This is, please next slide, our digital strategy that our government pronounced or adopted a few years ago, but it's already has been in revision some months ago. And this digital strategy of Switzerland sets a profound framework to ensure interinstitutional collaboration and cooperation with, on the one hand, universities, and on the other hand, small and medium-sized enterprises in Switzerland. The objective is to foster high-quality data, services, and also knowledge, as well as technological advances that meet the needs of all users. In this spirit, and especially also following the Canberra Ministerial Declaration, our Environment Office has initiated exchanges with the private sector. And these exchanges have given valuable insights in the importance that the private sector attributes to quality, traceability, and legitimacy and credibility of the data, which must be formally guaranteed at the end by the relevant national and international bodies. So the strategy itself is also a basis for this cooperation with the private sector, and I think this is really important and interesting for the future. But also by the adoption of the digital strategy for Switzerland now in 2020, our Federal Office for the Environment has been mandated to elaborate on the benefits of digitalization for environmental policy, which is seen as a unique chance to showcase the value of such data. And in this sense, GEO is crucial because with the objectives of GEO, the priorities that we have given us with the Paris agreement, but also with the SDG and Agenda 2030 and the Sendai Declaration, key topics are interesting to showcase what the digital strategy for Switzerland could be in the future, and where we have to set the benchmark for the quality of the data and the cooperation with the private sector. Next slide, please. We have also an open government strategy that was adopted in 2019 and is foreseen until 2023. The Open Data Swiss portal has been developed as part of this open government data strategy in Switzerland for this period. The publication of such data reinforces transparency, but also participation and innovation in all sectors of our society. The federal services, our authorities, are gradually disseminating the data to apply this principle in a sustainable and consolidated manner. Open access to data and published scientific findings aims to facilitate access to for everyone interested, thereby having more impact and supporting services and scientific progress. This is also the big objective that we are working for within GEO and GEOSS. Advances in the implementation of our so-called environmental data Kiosk, with the goal to use data visualization to communicate insights and contribute factual, data-driven arguments to political topics, to tell stories with data, as Trevor mentioned before on the water sector, for example, and to create timely and relevant content quickly and easily, and to share these visualizations on social media and other platforms. But it is also important to say that this environmental data kiosk relays on data from a high quality, because if quality is not given, then every visualization isn't really good for decision making. Next slide, please. So, Trevor mentioned it already, and as we heard yesterday in the ExCom meeting, data cubes, I think, are really important for the future to aggregate all these information and data that we have from in situ, but also from Earth observation, in a manner that we can use it for decision making in the complex areas of climate change, but also of the SDGs in the whole economic area and urban planification and so on, and also on disaster risk reduction. If we can manage this for the future, if we can spread this technology of data cubes all over the world, we think that we will attain our objectives in a better way than if we go sector by sector. And Switzerland is really proud to help also others to implement this kind of technology, and we are open here for further discussion, and are also aware that we have to secure the access to repositories and data storage in the long term. So our government agencies need to ensure the funding mechanism for the curation of these data repositories and digitized material, and we are also working on this. Also here is to say what I said before, the quality issues, the importance that we attribute to quality and traceability, legitimacy and credibility of open data emphasizes the need this quality of open data through adequate and standardized review mechanism. And also here GEO with its institutions and working agenda is really important to ensure these quality issues. Next slide, please. I just wanted also to open a little bit the eye on the monitoring of biodiversity and ecosystem services, because the focus so far is really much on climate change, but if we have a look on the challenges for the future, so the ecosystems are like a ground for every other SDGs, and to achieve our goals that we have been given with regard to the biodiversity and ecosystem services for the future, I think we should have a closer look how Earth observation data allow us to detect the mechanism that shape the relationship between biodiversity and ecosystem functions across large scales. And to open here a little bit the discussion also, yesterday we discussed the topic of urban resilience, and all that I mentioned before. I think it's important that we keep in mind that data cubes on the one hand, but also a focus on biodiversity and ecosystem services will be crucial for achieve our goals that we have under the aspect of urban resilience for the future.
Corinne, can you start to wrap up, please?
Yes, it's I have finished. Thank you.
Perfect. Great timing. So just quickly then, we have one question for you from the UK, who would like to know, can you say more about the intended users and the desired outcomes for the environmental data kiosk? Intended users and desired outcomes.
Yes, it's on the one hand, the authorities, also other authorities, not only environmental offices, but all universities, institutions, and other economy, private sector. Everyone will have access to these data.
Okay, I didn't get all of that, but I think we can put some stuff, we can share some of the answers later. We seem to have lost Corinne.
No, I'm here.
Oh, you're still there? Okay.
Yes.
We lost you towards the end. You disappeared.
Oh, okay. But you heard my answer or not?
More or less, I think so. I think so.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So I'm now going to move to Natalia Kusul, who is the Deputy Director and Head of the Space Information Technologies Department, NASU SSAU, in Ukraine. And Natalia has been asked to step in about an hour ago, so we're very grateful for her doing so, but I know she's an expert in all of this. So nice to see you again, Natalia, and we'll hand over to you now.
Yes, thank you very much. I will talk on behalf of our GEO Principal. It is the director of our institute, Space Research Institute of Ukraine, Oleg Fedorov. And I am Deputy GEO Principal in Ukraine. Next slide, please. Yes. In Ukraine, GEO activities are very important for developing our governmental strategy. I was hearing previous speakers, and I can say that in Ukraine we are not so good in implementation of, in use of Earth observation in government, in our real life. And our GEO activities are starting from science, from research, and our GEO Principal is the director of scientific institution. In Ukraine, our governmental people are not so confident that they confident on the benefits, on importance of Earth observation data, and we see our mission as participants of GEO as capacity building of Earth observation environment, application environment in Ukraine, and motivation of our government to use this data in their decision making. That is why the first and very important part of our activities is organizational activity, when we try to build Ukrainian research area in Earth observation, and also we cooperate with ministries to create our national committee of Earth observation, Ukrainian GEO Committee, which should push the use of Earth observation into decision making and our life. And the main driver of this activity is our participation in international projects. First of all, it is European projects Horizon 2020. We are members of Aeroplanet program, and two of the projects, GeoEssential and SMORPS, are directly related with GEO work plan and GEO activities. It is firstly EuroGeo, and we, Ukraine, as a part of EuroGeo, try to promote these activities in Ukraine and try to implement the scientific results into governmental decisions. The next step is implementation of this scientific methodology into technological basis to provide operational use of Earth observation. And in this way, the most important projects are GEO Amazon Web Services project and GEO Google Earth Engine project, where we applied and were accepted, and we try to use these cloud technologies for pre-operational implementation of satellite monitoring and Earth observation in Ukraine. And these technologies are used for real problems, for everyday tasks. And in Ukraine, we have a lot of different disasters. For example, this year we faced with spring fires, very heavy fires, and we used this data and these technologies to monitor these fires in operational mode. And also we try to implement these technologies in decision making in Ministry of Economy for land monitoring, land use monitoring, and so on. Next slide, please. Some words for more details. Within Horizon 2020 Era Planet, there is a project GEO Essential where we take part together with our Switzerland colleagues. Karin mentioned essential variables which are very important for use of Earth observation in decision making, and this methodology is under developing in this project. We participate it together with Switzerland, and we develop the technology of Sustainable Development Goals indicators assessment. Namely, it is indicators that are based on land cover, land use. It is 1531 indicator and 241 indicator. Both of them are related to agricultural productivity and land productivity and land degradation. Within this European project, the workflow of essential variables calculation is developed, and we were the main country which lead this project, this workflow. Next, please. Another one project in Era Planet is SMURPS project, Smart Urban Solutions for Air Quality, Disasters and City Growth. And the main attention in this project is paid into urban essential variables and Sustainable Development Goal 11 for resilient cities. This technology is also developed. It is adopted. There is the technology for European Union, and Ukraine is not a member of the European Union, and we adopted this European technology for Ukraine, where we have much less data sources, and we created comparable products with European Urban Atlas. Next, please. Right now, 1 week ago, we were accepted into the biggest EuroGeo project eShape. It is also a project of Horizon 2020, and it joins all the countries in Europe and all the organizations who are involved into EuroGeo program. And we are happy and very proud to be a part of this community, because it gives us power to push these activities in Ukraine. Next, please. And there are two projects in Ukraine directed into the practical implementation of this methodology. It is GEO Amazon project, where we implement the methodology of Sustainable Development Goals indicators assessment in AWS for Ukraine, and then we are going to extend the technology for Argentina and India also. It is very important because in Ukraine we have no infrastructure, national infrastructure for geospatial data processing, and we use this cloud technology. Next, please. And this year we started one more project, cloud project within GEO Google Earth Engine program. And this project will be mostly focused on agricultural tasks and sustainable land management. Ukraine is an agricultural country, that is why agricultural monitoring is of the highest priority in Ukraine. Next, please. And the implementation, the practical use of Earth observation, indeed. Using these technologies and these cloud infrastructures, we were able to monitor the fires which happened this spring in forests in Ukraine, big territory, and a lot of hotspots were detected and monitored and managed using this Earth observation technology. It was very important. During the lockdown, Ukraine became the most polluted country. Our cities were most polluted due to these forest fires. Next one, please.
So can you just start to wrap up, Natalia?
Yes, it is the last slide. One of the most important program is World Bank and the European Union program supporting transparent land governments in Ukraine, and we are implementing the technology of agricultural monitoring using satellite data and cloud technologies. That is why, that's all, and we are happy. It is very important for us to be a member of GEO community, because it helps us to build the strategy, to implement this strategy in Ukraine.
Spasibo. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
So I just have one quick question for you. You talked about the SDG indicators for SDG 15 via GEO Essential. Are you also working with GEO LDN on the land degradation neutrality work?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
No, please continue.
We validate their technologies within this project and improved it in the sense that we use our land cover map, which is of higher resolution than the global product, and that is why we can achieve more accuracy with our data.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So I just want to remind everyone in the audience that you can go to slido.com, and if you put in GEO Week 2020, you can put your questions in there to the speakers. And I'd also let the speakers know there are some questions in there if you want to have a look as well. There's one for Australia and there's one for Switzerland. I also just want to explain, earlier Karine talked about XCOM. And XCOM is the GEO Executive Committee, and that's 16 countries. And so over the last 2 days, we've been having meetings of the Executive Committee, and we had an extended Executive Committee meeting yesterday with about 60 participants. So I just wanted to clarify that term for people. So the last speaker in this session is now Vu An Tuan, and I'm really sorry for the pronunciation, who is the Vice Director General of the Vietnam National Space Center, VNSC, which is part of the Vietnam Academy of Science called VAST. So you have the floor. I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you very much, Stephen. So can you hear me well?
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you very much. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It depends on where you are. Today I would like to bring some information about the remote sensing application in Vietnam and link with the today topic is the value of GEO and what is the link between the needs of developing country like Vietnam with the value of the GEO. So next slide, please, Steven. So for some background information, in Vietnam we are quite lucky. I can say so because we have two strategy, national strategy. First one is established from 2006. It's a strategy for research and application of space technology to 2020. And because this year is 2020, so we are in the progress of renew the strategy. I am also involved in the renew processing of this strategy. And for the last year, we established also a new strategy. It's a strategy for development of remote sensing to 2030. This one is a brand new strategy, and because we have two national strategies, so the resources for space technology and also for remote sensing for research and application is coming more and more and invest to the application and research of remote sensing. So we say that is lucky. So for the Earth observation satellite projects in Vietnam now we have two projects. First one is the VNRESat-1. This is also the name of the satellite. It works on orbit from 2013 and it's still on the orbit now, 7 years old. However, we are expecting that it will be under operation 2 years more. And the second satellite project is the Vietnam National Space Center. In this project, we plan to launch a satellite we call LeTousat-1. This is the SAR satellite, and expecting that it can be work on the orbit in 2024. So we can say that the satellite projects is a result of the strategy for research and application of space technology. And now we are working on the activities for the strategy for development of remote sensing to 2030. That is important. And besides the satellite project, we have research program also in national program of space technology and application research, and it operated by VAS. And I can tell you that most of the research project under this research program is related to remote sensing and application, because remote sensing and application is take a very important role in Vietnam for many fields of applications. So next slide, please. So we have also Vietnam Data Cube, like Switzerland and Ukraine, and Vietnam Data Cube. You know all about the Data Cube, and Vietnam Data Cube also is developed under the CEOS activities, and we get the technical help from CSIRO from Australia, and the colleagues from Australia to help VNSC to install the system, and now maintenance and also operate the system. And for the data of Vietnam Data Cube, we have almost 100,000 satellite scenes already. It's very huge. And for the system, we have more than 120 terabytes of storage and 8 nodes of computation. It's quite a good system. But all the data of Vietnam Data Cube is like another data cube. Is free and open data, and it comes from USGS, mostly from Landsat, from CNES and ESA, from Sentinel and Copernicus satellites, and from JAXA. JAXA contributes ALOS 2 to Vietnam Data Cube. It's a very special, because in Vietnam we are in tropical country. We have cloud cover, many times in the year. So radar data is very important. So JAXA contributes the ALOS-2 data, SAR data to Vietnam Data Group. And this now is on the demonstration phase, and it will be deployment soon, very soon. And for the application of the Vietnam Data Group, now we are working on the forest monitoring and rice monitoring, and we are working in water monitoring, and it will be coming application in Vietnam Data Group. Next slide, please. So we are talking about the Vietnam national priority of Earth observation applications. I have a small map in Vietnam in the center of slide, showing the disasters type in Vietnam. So actually in Vietnam there is many types of disaster, but I don't want to say that important, but it's affected well in Vietnam is typhoon, flooding, and landslide. The typhoon is showing in the yellow color. So every year we have around 10 typhoons hitting to Vietnam coastal zone, in the yellow line. And with the typhoon, also there is flooding in the north, in the south, and also in the central. And landslide occurs in the mountainous area in the north and in the central area. So if you see to the central part of Vietnam, the very narrow part of Vietnam, there is existing three types of the disaster. When the typhoon hit to the coastal zone, it makes the flood, and it also makes the slide. So for last in central Vietnam, there is three typhoon hit almost the same area, and we have very bad situation there, and the flooding is coming and stay for more than 10 days, and landslide occurs, and more than 100 people died for this kind of disaster. And another typhoon is still coming, and after 2 days it will hit quite the same area. So that is that's why the disaster in central Vietnam is very bad now. So with this situation, Vietnam national priority should be the disaster. Disaster is most important in Vietnam. How to manage, how to be resilient with disaster every year in Vietnam. So that is a priority and the needs from Vietnam. So we can see how the GEO value can bring some answer for that national priority in Vietnam. Next slide, please. Okay, so in GEO we have a topic for doing that, for the prevent the disaster, and for disaster in Vietnam, we feel that the risk assessment and also the evacuation and rescue is very most important that the Earth observation data can take place in. In the forecasting or prediction, we are doing quite well now, but for the risk assessment and also for the evacuation and rescue, we need more and more information, because if you see when typhoon hit to the coastal zone, the area is covered by clouds, and we cannot use the optical satellite data in such case. We just only use the radar data. And for example, for the typhoon I talked before, many scenes of Sentinel-1 and 1B, 1A and 1B have been used, processed and used. So we have Sentinel H 3 days. So Sentinel, increasing the time, yeah, the acquisition time for the observation time for this area.
Can you wrap up now? Can you start to wrap up?
Yes, just just half a minute. Yeah, okay. So Earth observation and especially satellite radar satellite data is very important to Vietnam, and we can find it with the help from GEO community and also from the Kiosk community. And so I would like to go just a few seconds on the last slide. Next slide, please. So I see here that is a very quick assessment of the link between the goal of GEO with the needs, presentation needs in Vietnam. So I just a very quick assessment by saying less strong, strong, or very strong to each goals on also strategy of GEO. And I also using this strategy of GEO to influence to the strategy of space technology now in Vietnam. So I think it somehow help some country in Vietnam that we can link with the international community to see what we need and what is good for our situation and bring it to our strategy. And from that strategy, we can get the resources for the application in Vietnam. So thank you very much. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. So I think on your last slide, for energy, we could hook you up with some of the work being done on GeoVenir through France. For biodiversity and ecosystem, Kareen's already talked about it, so you have an immediate partner there. And for public health, there's EO for Health, which is led a lot by the United States of America, particularly NASA and NOAA. So we can help connect you with all of those different activities to strengthen your activity. So as we're into the last 10 minutes, we don't have a huge amount of time, but all of you have talked about national strategy, and all of you, without us organising it, all of you have talked about data cubes. So this is very interesting, and all of you have mentioned investments. What I'd like to understand, and what I think might be useful for the audience, is how do all of these activities align with the work of your national GEO? So what's the challenges and what are the opportunities for putting these strategies together with input from others as part of a national GEO? So since you haven't spoken for a while, Trevor, I'll go back to you, and maybe you can take the first stab at that, and please try to keep it short.
Yeah, point well made, Steve. Not in my nature. Look, so it's worth noting Australia doesn't have a national GEO, but we wouldn't be where we are today without the level of cross-government coordination that we've got from multiple forums. So we have everything from Earth Observation Australia, which is a community-led, community-driven process that we've very much supported, and has led to things like a community Earth observation plan for Australia. We've worked very closely across government to develop, and to contribute to plans, but also to do national studies of the economic value of Earth observations. And that's been a really critical point for government to be able to say with some credibility, there is not just a benefit to better environmental decision making, there is a genuine economic benefit from investing in the use of Earth observation that will help drive sustainable economic growth and more jobs in Australia. I think probably the last thing I'd say about it, while we've been well coordinated, and that's why we are where we're at today, we've had a very good Team Australian government approach. The thing that we want to take the next step is actually institutionalise that in a formal coordination office. So we think that office, the Australian Government Earth Observation Coordination Office, will help support Australia's broader EO community. It'll help us it'll be lightweight, it'll help us to be connected, but it won't try to do everything. But it'll really make sure that the Australian government is doing its bit to coordinate and align activities across government for the benefit of communities, and provide a framework by which the Australian government conjointly engage in activities, whether they be with GEO or our engagement with the International Committee on Earth Observation Satellites or other key regional initiatives. Thanks,
Thank you,
Dave.
Trevor. Natalia?
Yes, we in Ukraine is on the way of building our national committee, and we try to build communication between community and decision makers, our governments, and so it is our current position. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Antoine?
Yes. So I think from Vietnam, I think the most important that is we in the GEO application we need the investment from our government. At least something like seed money, yeah, for establishing some new applications, and then after that we can make it wider and wider. For example, for rice monitoring, now we are working with our government, and we every month we report the data and the rice map for whole country for our government. And with such kind of products, some people from business sector, because Vietnam is also very big rice exporter. So some business people from business sector find that our data can bring some, I don't know, maybe value information for them, yeah, for expanding or reducing the rice, the area of rice or something. So I think that we have to start from the government, investment from the government, and then after that we can expand it to the other sector like private or business sector. So that is learn from Vietnam. Yeah.
Thank you. Very similar to Trevor on the economic growth aspect as well. And the final word goes to you, Karine.
Thank you so much. So I showed you that we have the strategies, but the implementation of the strategy, that's the challenge. So I would say one of the main challenges for us is how to integrate Earth observation data with government social economic data. And the data cubes for these are a really interesting tool. The pandemic situation showed that we need this integration of Earth observation data and social economic data for facing the future in a sustainable way. So Switzerland is really working on integration of Earth observation data with socio-economic data.
Perfect. So we are now just coming up to 10 a.m. and the end of the call. I would like to thank you all for giving your very valuable time and your insights. And we will share some of the answers you've given across the different communication channels. So hopefully, Karine, that helps communicate a little bit some of your work as well. So thank you once again, and I wish you all a great evening for a number of you who are probably going to go and put your children to bed or have a glass of wine or something. And to the rest of you, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you again for your participation.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.